Okay, today we're going to be talking about close reading and the three components of it. I know you guys are all familiar with annotating, but we need to discuss why it's important to annotate, as well as asking questions as you read, and then also understanding why are these details important to me as the reader. Okay, so we're going to be discussing those things. Before we start on the text, I want everyone writing this in their notebook, please. Okay. Kevel, could you read those for me, please?
Okay. The three components of close reading. Number 1, annotating. Mark the important details. Highlight, side notes, underline, etc. Number 2, question. Why might the author have included these details? Number 3, conclude. What do these details tell you?
Okay. Is there any other types of annotating that you guys might do that are not listed here? Just out of curiosity. Any techniques that you guys can share with us that help you better connect with the text of whatever you're reading?
I don't know if this counts as annotating, but do footnotes.
Awesome. How about like sticky notes, right? Writing them on the side and sticking them all over your book or whatever you're reading. Does that help? Who likes to do that? Raise a hands. Who likes to create separate little notes? Okay. And footnotes, like what exactly did you mean by that?
Like sometimes in text, you'll see like next to a word, you'll see like a 1, and then at the bottom of the page, the 1 will be like, this is what this word means.
Correct. So you go and highlight that. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So highlighting is like the basics of annotating, right? I mean, you can get really pretty crazy, not really crazy, but kind of really creative with annotating, right? It's whatever helps you to really connect and remember the important details of the text. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and listen to this story. And just make sure I have... Guys, make sure you have all that in your notes.
Sports profile. Background. The story of D'Artagnan Crockett and Leroy Sutton inspired the media and public alike when ESPN aired Tom Rinaldi's Carry On, which won the prestigious Edward R. Murrow Award for Best News Documentary. Their story gained even greater momentum when Lisa Fenn, the television producer who brought the story to ESPN, published a memoir about how she developed a close relationship with these young men, one in which they learned and benefited from each other. This memoir, Carry On, a story of resilience, redemption, and an unlikely family, is slated to be made into a feature film. About the author. Tom Rinaldi is an award-winning correspondent and reporter for ESPN and ABC in New York. He is well known for his critically acclaimed feature stories and reports on a wide variety of sports, including college football and golf. Prior to his career in journalism, Rinaldi was a high school English and ESL teacher in the Bronx in New York City. A native of Brooklyn, New York, Rinaldi wrote The Red Bandana, a best-selling biography of 9/11 hero Wells Crowther. High School Teammates Carry On by Tom Rinaldi. Leroy, touch your toes. Leroy reaches his arms out in front of him in mock effort and says, "They're at home." And then the boys laugh. He didn't know they were gone. Staring down at the sheets of his bed, the morphine starting to fade, Leroy Sutton was still numb, but he had a feeling something was wrong. "It was when I tried to sit up," Leroy said, remembering that day nearly 8 years ago. "I pulled the covers up, and that's when I figured everything out." It was December 7th, 2001, the day that shaped Leroy's body and his life. He was 11 years old at the time, walking to school with his brother along the Wheeling and Lake Erie railroad tracks near his home in East Akron, Ohio. A freight train approached, and Leroy got too close. His backpack got caught on one of the passing cars, and he was pulled beneath the wheels. "I didn't even look down," said Leroy, now 19, recalling the first moments afterward. "I was just staring at the sun the whole time. I wasn't trying to look down because that's when I would have panicked." The paramedics who arrived within minutes saved Leroy's life, but the doctors could not save his entire body. At Children's Hospital in Akron, his left leg was amputated below the knee, his right leg below the hip. He knew what had happened, but didn't understand what he'd lost until a day later, when he lifted the sheets and looked down. As the memory came back to him, his voice dropped and his head dipped. "The whole time I was in the hospital, I just asked, 'Why? Why?'" he said. "Every night I could not go to sleep, because when I tried, I'd end up hearing the sound of a train." Leroy left the hospital a month and a half later. He endured long, difficult hours of rehabilitation. He accepted that a wheelchair would be part of his life, but was determined to make it a small part. "I did not want to be in my chair," he said. "I had to build my arm muscles up so I could move around. I move around on my arms a lot." That ability to move, to lift and flip and twist his body, led him to a place few expected, and into a friendship few could have foreseen. "Leroy, don't forget your shoes." Others look down, duped. Leroy just smiles. "You just can't see them." In January 2008, midway through his junior year in high school, Leroy transferred to Lincoln West High in Cleveland. By the time he was a senior, he was a familiar sight, his wheelchair flying down the hallways, with a familiar refrain, his laughter booming off the lockers. When he decided to join the wrestling team, just as he'd done at his previous school, the coaches welcomed him. They knew his story and were eager to tap his strength. "I told him, 'You've been hit by a train. What else? What kid? What wrestler? What can stop you?'" said Lincoln West coach Torrance Robinson. At Leroy's first practice, his first partner was the only other wrestler on the team powerful enough to handle him. D'Artagnan Crockett was Lincoln's best and strongest talent. He was 5'10" with muscles bunched like walnuts, and already a winner in multiple weight classes. But when Leroy hopped off his chair and onto the wrestling mat, the competition was more than D'Artagnan expected. "He was a complete powerhouse," D'Artagnan said, recalling their first drills together. "I never wrestled anyone as strong as him. We pushed each other to our limits, and we didn't let each other give up." Hour after hour, month after month, practices connected them in ways that went beyond the gym. They went everywhere together, between classes, on team bus rides, at each other's houses, both dialed into a wavelength few others could hear. They spontaneously broke into songs only they knew. They performed imaginary superhero moves they invented. They laughed at jokes and words only they understood. Yet their simplest connection was the one everyone saw and no one anticipated. Not even Leroy and D'Artagnan know exactly when or how it first happened. "One day I'm coming out of my office," said Cairo Taylor, the school's powerlifting coach. "I look over to the corner of the gym where the mats were at, and right up the steps I see D'Artagnan with something on his back. And the closer I get, I'm like, 'Is that Leroy?' And it was Leroy on his back. D'Artagnan's carrying him." It was not a one-time ride. D'Artagnan lifted Leroy onto his back and carried him to and from every match, on and off every bus, into and out of every gym, all season long. At more than 170 pounds, Leroy was not a light load. D'Artagnan never cared, and the carrying never stopped. "Most of the time, we wouldn't get a wheelchair lift, so I would have to carry him on the bus, take his wheelchair apart, put it on the bus, then carry him off the bus," he said, "and then into the building and up the stairs." D'Artagnan lifted Leroy onto his back for the playing of every national anthem, and carried him down the bleachers before each match. Yet as inseparable as they were, a team unto themselves in a way, they also shared something greater than their sport. That's because the teammate who carried Leroy on his back all season long knows about challenges himself. D'Artagnan Crockett knows, because he's legally blind. D'Artagnan sings, "I can see clearly now, the rain is gone." Leroy listens, then corrects him. "But you can't see?" "So I can still sing." and they pick up the song together, twice as loud. Born with Leber's disease, a condition that causes acute visual loss, D'Artagnan, 18, has been severely nearsighted his entire life. He can barely make out the facial features of a person sitting 5 feet away. "I'm basically blind compared to someone with 20/20 vision," he said. As a boy, his father watched him bump into the same table corners and fumble for the same objects over and over again, uncertain what was wrong. He received the diagnosis just after his son started elementary school. "I wanted to grab him and help him, but I wasn't allowed to do that because the world isn't like that," Arthur Harris said. "I never let him feel sorry for himself. I did feel like something was wrong with me because I was completely different from everyone," D'Artagnan said. "Like I was some type of freak." Yet as he grew older, he not only accepted the condition, but also adjusted so well to his inability to see that those around him often were unaware of anything until he told them. "I asked him, 'Are you serious?' said Lincoln West teacher and assistant wrestling coach Justin Hans. 'Nothing about him ever gives you the hint that he has a disability. The way he carries himself, he doesn't ask for anything.' Still, there are signs. At times, his eyes dart back and forth as if ricocheting between objects. Boarding the city bus for the ride to school, he asks the driver to tell him when his stop is near, unwilling to trust his glimpses of the passing landscape. In class, often he places text just inches from his face to read. On the wrestling mat, although his moves are quick and bold, he sees little more than rough shapes lunging toward him. Yet his own view of his limits remains focused and clear. "I'm just seeing it as a challenge God has given me and how I'm going to react to this challenge," he said. "Let it make me the person I am, or let it break me." Other trials in his life could have broken him long ago. After his mother died when he was 8, he moved in with his father, Harris, who struggled to take care of himself in the midst of an addiction to drugs and alcohol. There were times when D'Artagnan scavenged the house for food, but found none. For most of his time in high school, he had no steady place to call home. "I let him down," Harris said. "It was terrible for him." Through it all, D'Artagnan stayed in school, stayed on the mat, and supported his dad's effort to stay clean. Harris now has been sober while working 2 full-time jobs for more than a year. That D'Artagnan would pick someone else up was no surprise. He learned to carry a father before he ever carried a friend. "He made a lot of mistakes in the past, and he's learned from them," D'Artagnan said. "It's made our bond stronger than I could fathom. He's a great father." When the words were related to Harris, he dropped his head and began to cry. "Above all, I'm glad the love never left," he said. "I'm glad that stayed." D'Artagnan and Leroy moved down the hallway after class. "I'm Darth Cripple," Leroy says. "I am Blind Vader," D'Artagnan replies, and they turn a corner. Their laughter is all that's left behind. Friends joke. They jab. They can be the least flattering of critics and the loudest of supporters. So it is with D'Artagnan and Leroy. They mock each other and themselves every chance they get, in ways others never would dare. There's a sure sign of a pending joke. The pace of speech slows and the tone becomes a notch too earnest. Leroy, in particular, has mastered the pattern. "People look up to me sometimes," he said from his wheelchair. He waits, then says, "Well, usually they look down to me." His laughter comes first, and easiest. "They constantly make fun of each other's situation, each other's disability," Hans said. "But they do it publicly because they're not afraid of their disabilities." The one place they don't laugh is in competition. Entering gyms all season, one atop the other, each cared as much about the other's match as his own, with as much invested in the other's outcome. Every time D'Artagnan wrestled, Leroy sat on the edge of the mat, serving as unofficial coach and chief encourager. "It's like having my brother there," D'Artagnan said. There was plenty to watch. Competing at 189 pounds in Ohio, one of the most wrestling-rich states in the country, D'Artagnan relied more on strength than technique, preferring to overwhelm foes than to outpoint them. Nearly always the aggressor, he rarely waited for another's move, for a simple reason. He might never see it. So he struck first and usually firmest. He went 26-3 in his senior season, securing the league championship in his weight class. "It's amazing," Robinson said. "As phenomenal as he is, and he can't see. How does that happen?" As for Leroy, who's unable to generate the leverage essential in wrestling, leverage gained by using the lower body that he doesn't possess, the matches were tougher, and the wins more difficult. He expected nothing less than 100% from his opponents, and if he sensed any pity, he reacted with anger. Pity, he spits the word. It's more than likely that I'll punch you in the face than sit here and cry. Leroy would bounce on his hands and often flip his way onto the mat before matches. Then he would scream out. Then he would slap his hands down as hard as he could, making a thunderous echo, his smile dead, his arms wired. If some stared when Leroy entered the gym atop D'Artagnan, even more stared as he competed. Wrestling in multiple weight classes this season, Leroy won 9 matches, the majority by pinning his opponents. But in every match, regardless of the outcome, he left a message. He never said it, but his coaches understood. Watching him wrestle, Robinson said, has taught me how to stand in areas of my life that I wouldn't have wanted to. Did you guys do the homework? The teacher asks. D'Artagnan tried, says Leroy, but he couldn't see it. So Leroy ran over, says D'Artagnan, and read it to me. It was the final night of the school year, graduation night. The people inside the theater building of Cuyahoga Community College were there for a celebration more than a ceremony, to pay tribute to an accomplishment that meant more here than in most schools in America. The majority of students at Lincoln West High School never earn a diploma. This year, the school had a graduation rate of roughly 40%. On that early June night, the graduates gathered on a stage, their gowns flowing and their tassels poised to swing, each ready to mark a point in a journey. Leroy had dreamed of this night for a long time. My goal, he said in May, is to actually walk across the stage. No one on the stage that night understood that goal more than D'Artagnan. That's why when Leroy's name was called, D'Artagnan stood too, right beside him. What would you do for a friend, one you carried on your back all year long? You'd put him down and walk beside him, which was exactly what D'Artagnan did. He helped Leroy stand upon new prosthetic legs he was fitted for just weeks earlier, then moved alongside him as Leroy crossed the stage, step for step, eye to eye. When Leroy stopped, put out his hand, and grasped his diploma, the audience rose and delivered a standing ovation. After the photos were taken and the music stopped and the tears dried, the two sat in the theater, side by side. As long as I can remember, D'Artagnan said, I've been carrying him from point A to B to C. Graduation was the first time I finally got to walk beside him. He paused. It was a privilege. It was an honor. Leroy's eyes moistened, and he looked up. It meant so much to me, he said, to know I have a friend who was there to catch me if I stumbled. There was no stumble. There was no pun or punchline, no joke or jab. They were just two friends, sharing one moment, and there they lingered, smiling, in silence.
Okay. Was everybody able to hear that okay? Okay. Emma, could you give me a gist of what we just listened to? From what you heard, give me a gist of what you heard.
They talked about two friends.
Okay.
And how when he carried his friend, they both had disability.
Okay. I mean, you could dig a lot deeper, right?
Can I try?
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe the story was about two friends. They both had disabilities, but even though they had disabilities, they still joked about it and they still had a happy time. Instead of letting the disabilities get in their way, they used their disabilities to their advantages.
Absolutely. Great job, Stephen. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to turn on the light. 1 second. Sorry, guys, if we don't keep moving in this classroom, it turns off. But, okay. As you were going through the reading, you saw that there were certain vocabulary words that were highlighted, correct? So what do you do when you come across a vocabulary word that you don't know? Yes, Kevin.
I think what you're supposed to do is that you well, first of all, yeah, even though if it isn't highlighted but it's bolded, it's better like box it in, and then like maybe if you have a dictionary around you, look it up there, or
Okay.
read around the word to see what like context clues
Okay.
give away what it could mean.
Absolutely. Why is it important?
It's important because if you like if there are any keywords around like for the for some of the words like outcome or invested, like you can if you read around that you can tell like what those words mean, how they apply to the story.
Okay. So why do you think the author might have included certain vocabulary words that might be, so to say, more difficult for others to understand?
To not sound repetitive, give the article or story a little bit more depth, so it keeps you intrigued to see, oh, what does that word mean? Or,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then how can you conclude that would benefit you?
It would benefit us because with these words being seen, we'll learn a new vocabulary word,
Exactly.
and it'll also help us because if we see that word in another passage, we know context clues to look for in that
Yep.
to help us understand if there's a question based on that word.
Excellent.
Also-
Go ahead, Stephen.
Also, when you are going to write your own essay or something, you can use that same word to just you can add that word, and instead of constantly repeating other words.
Exactly. Do you think it'll enrich your vocabulary bank, so to say?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Did you have a question earlier, Stephen, or were you just raising?
I was raising my hand.
Okay. All right. Did someone else have a question earlier? I saw a raised hand, but it's done. Oh, Ziba, did you have a question?
I was saying, like, after we finish a story, can you please go back to the Word document where we had to copy the notes?
Absolutely. Yes. Let me get that for you.
Thank you. I also have
You're
one.
welcome. Yep. Absolutely.
Wait, will start as be like hard?
Um,
Hard?
We will discuss that in a tiny bit. I just want to make sure you guys get these notes. Give me 1 second.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks for going back.
No worries. Give me 1 second. Where did they go? Hey guys, I typed it on a Word document and then somehow it went away. Can you guys see the screen? Can you guys see the screen okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then you can use a highlighter for that. Your
What does that say?
annotating, and I'm going to make it bigger in a second. I always want to add an E in there. Okay.
Can you repeat that?
Give me 1 second. I'm going to write this all for you, write down it all for you, and then you guys can included these details.
Does that say, what is the second one say?
I'm going to enlarge it for you in a few seconds. Just give me one. Let me just get all this down for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Is that good?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then, like we said, to mark important details, we can use highlighters. Side notes. Underline. And I've seen people circle vocabulary. Can anybody, sticky notes, right? And you think of anything else, let me know, we can add it. I don't know why that keeps doing that. No. Because of this. All right, and let me know when we can move on. Give you guys 1 to 2 minutes to write that down. 2 minutes should be good.
You can write on these textbooks, right?
Yes, those are yours.
For when we write stuff, do we have to like put the periods on the end of the little blurb, like the little So you know how you made that?
Right here?
Yeah, that. You put the period there. If you have that little
I just like, yeah.
Okay.
No, sorry. No. That'd be right there.
Okay, okay. So that's where you're supposed to put it.
Actually, you know what? No, you're right. Let's put that there and just be on the safe side.
Okay.
Good catch, Steven.
Thank you.
Okay, so guys, go ahead back to line 43. Okay. Can I switch back, Steven, or are you okay?
I'm okay.
Okay, and I'm going to put these just for the sake of time. I know normally we're not.
In the chat?
Yes. So that we can move on. Okay?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Did that all? Yep. Okay. Okay,
Alright
good.
then.
Okay. That has. Okay. So let's go back to the text. In line 23, why did the author repeat every and never? Rachel. And when you're annotating, make sure you highlight those kind of important factors. When you see a word repeated or emphasized, make sure you highlight that. Why is that highlighted, Rachel? As you read 23, why are those things important?
Because if you highlight those, you will like have like small points of the story.
Okay.
What you need to evidence.
Okay. Well, why do you think the author repeated those words?
Cause he wanted to show how two friends were helping each other even though their disabilities.
Okay. And why do you think those details are important to you as the reader?
Cause it shows us that two friends can help each other even though they're different.
Right? And the fact that they both have disabilities, usually one is really kind of depressed and upset and kind of tend to focus on their disabilities. But these guys, what did you notice throughout the reading? What was their attitude towards their disability?
They felt positive. They weren't just like, they were connected. They knew what each other were feeling.
Okay. Excellent. And 38. Go down to 38. This was Karthik. What was his attitude here about his disability in 38?
Paragraph 38.
Line 38. What was his attitude towards his disability?
His attitude was like he didn't really care about it. He believed that God gave him a challenge. It was his job to take it upon him.
Okay. Why is this important for the author to put in the reading?
Because it kind of shows that no matter what happened to you, as long as you try, you'll be able to do it.
Okay. And does it show the importance of a mindset?
Yes.
Okay. What would you say his mindset was?
His mindset is like don't let anything come in your way.
Okay. And do you think it was a positive or a negative mindset?
Positive.
Okay. Awesome. 48. Did you guys notice what was their attitude once they got into the wrestling mat, on the wrestling mat?
They became very competitive, very like rough. They
Okay.
went from like being really nice, calm and collected, to like crazy. Not crazy, but like way more competitive against each other.
Exactly.
They were serious.
They were serious. Okay. How about you, Hal? What do you think? What do you think about these guys?
They
They're very positive about everything, and like they joke about their disability and stuff like that.
Okay.
They're like not really shy to like, they're not shy. They just talk about their disability.
Okay. What about D'Artagnan? What kind of obstacles did he face?